Hey all, Baruch Halevi, Rabbi B here. I'm coming to you live from Cherry Creek, Colorado, Denver, Colorado. You can see a lovely little oasis here in the middle of Denver. Hopefully it doesn't rain on me. It's looking a little stormy. So I hope this finds you well. I wanted to share with you some thoughts. First, Soul Centered is a center for spirituality, meaning, and healing. My wife Ariella and I co-founded it 9 months ago or so. And it is really a center for, hey Mick Finer's on, I'm honored. It's a center for making the transition into the afternoon of life, midlife onwards, right? Carl Jung says that up until 40, it's all research. 40 and after is when the games begin. The meaning of life starts to become the central aspect of life. Nice river, yeah, it's a little kind of, it's okay. It's, it's the middle of Denver, so I don't expect too much. Not the Rockies. Now those are some rivers. So again, welcome to everybody. In addition to Mick, who's going to tune in or getting on, or will watch this later on. So what Ariella and I do is we guide people through from morning into the afternoon of life, across the noon threshold, midlife threshold, and to do it with purpose and passion and power. The afternoon of life can be the most powerful time of our life if we shift, as Jung says, from new to have new rules. The morning rules don't work in the afternoon of life, and we don't want them to. We need new rules, and that's what these are conversations about, is new rules, the afternoon of life, to live powerfully. And that's what I do. I work with clients. I frame it around loss, life, and legacy. Those are my areas of passion and expertise. I believe deeply that those are all openings to transform our life, to create, to design the life we've always dreamed of, and to transform our losses into meaning and purpose, and to design our legacy. Why do we just leave our legacy to chance? Why don't we take matters into our own hands? And across the board, all kinds of ways to design legacy. And I want to talk to you just a little bit about legacy. This week, Ariella and I are focusing on this idea of legacy. Just love the word, love the term. Really comes from Latin and connotes a sense of divine purpose, representing something bigger than yourself, being a link in chains and passing that down. This is legacy. This is the stuff of our life, and after we're gone. And Ariella and I are talking this week about legacy because we're moving towards Father's Day on Sunday. And for me, my dad passed 15 years ago, but every Father's Day, I remember him formally. I take time to do that, and I honor him. And I encourage anybody and everybody, regardless of whether or not your father is living, Father's Day is a time to just make time for honor and tribute of our fathers. And for those who came before us every day, not just Father's Day. Two sides of it. One is for them, and one is for us. And Ariella and I tomorrow are going to have a soul conversation about legacy. Saturday, we're going to have the soul experience to frame it in a meditation, mindfulness experience around legacy. And Sunday, we're going to have the Father's Day Legacy Alive experience, which is going to be a memorial and celebration of our fathers who have come before us, who are no longer walking this earth, but have instilled within us their legacy. So right now I want to talk about the two sides of legacy. One is about them. Every morning now, since COVID started, been looking for places to go walking, and this is a great place, but it's not near me. This is near my office. My wife and Ariella and I, we live across, and our 4 kids, live across the street from a huge cemetery. For those in Denver, it's called Fairmount. Enormous, like the biggest cemetery I've ever seen, maybe outside of a couple big ones in LA. Thousands and thousands and thousands of headstones. And I'm walking along, I don't know, a few months ago, and it just struck me that there's a problem with these stones. They tell a very minimal story of those whose lives they represent, those stones. A couple names, couple numbers. Doesn't do justice. Then I'm walking a little bit further along, and I see a tree, a big Colorado elm or something. I don't know much about trees. And the tree had a QR code on it. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought, how effed up is this? I can scan, and I did scan, and it gave me the history of a beautiful tree, but it's a freaking tree. There are thousands of people lying before me. Each one of them Kabbalah teaches, each one is a Sefer Torah, is a scroll. And their lives were the stories written on that scroll, the scroll of their lives. Each one of them was a story. And I'm looking and thinking, I don't know any of them, and I can't know any of them. It was heartbreaking. This moment of, oh my God, we care more about the story of the tree than we do about Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith or the thousands and thousands of other numbers in that cemetery. It's wrong. I thought about the quote that I share all the time. I've officiated probably 500 funerals. I think I've shared this at 499 of them. A person dies two deaths, once when their body dies and once when their story dies. There's nothing you can do about the death of your loved one's body, the physical death of anybody. You can stave it off as long as possible, but ain't none of us getting out of this alive. But we are the guardians of our loved ones' stories. We can do everything about that second death. Nobody has to die a second death. We can and must become a guardian of our loved ones' stories. That's what it means to become a guardian of the story, to become a guardian of your loved one's legacy. Their story is in your hands. Whether or not they live or die that second death, that's up to me. My father lives on because my kids, even though two of them never met him, two of them vaguely remember him, they all know him. They don't know him from a physical encounter. They know him because I tell stories about him constantly. In their world, he's alive, he's well, he lives on. When I counsel people in loss, I help them get to understand that their loved one isn't dead. Their body is dead and it's painful and we have to be honest about it and grieve it and feel it. But they're not dead. There's so much about them that's alive. If you're thinking about them, they're alive. If you're feeling them, they're alive. If you have pictures and stories to tell, and they're alive. Right? We get to defy death. That to me is what is exciting about becoming a guardian of our loved one's legacy. And that's what each of these holidays, I would say holy days like Mother's Day, which we didn't experience around Father's Day, all become opportunities. Memorial Day for those who fought and died in the duty of serving country and all of us and our freedom. We have an obligation to remember those who came before us, to guard their stories, to pass it on. I wrote a book on this, Spark Seekers, and I talk a lot about the imagery of the fire, becoming a guardian of their flame, of their fire, right? And carrying it on from generation to generation and defying death. I mean, it's pretty remarkable that they just continue on indefinitely for as long as we tell their stories. There's a Jewish proverb that says, the only dead are those who have been forgotten. So again, the point, your loved one doesn't have to die, and they shouldn't die. And your fathers who gave you life and love, and I know many people have struggled with their fathers. So what? They still gave you life. Have to go in and find the sparks of blessing that they gave to us, no matter how difficult your relationship with your dad might have been. It's your opportunity, and I would say obligation, to find those sparks and to redeem your father if in fact you had a struggle-filled, challenging relationship. I did. My father killed himself. My father had deep, dark demons that he wrestled with, and he and I went head to head over a lot of those demons. He didn't deal with my grandmother's suicide, his mother's suicide. We went head to head, and when he left this world, we were not on the best of terms. But you know what? For the past 15 years, we've been working our stuff out. We have a great relationship now. I talk, he listens. Actually, he talks, I listen sometimes, every morning, in fact, in meditation. So the relationship continues on. Why do we give away our power to death and say, it's over, there's nothing I can do? There's everything you can do. And it starts with making time on, for example, Father's Day. It is not enough to say, I love my loved one, I think about them from time and again. It's not enough to become a guardian. If you want to become a guardian of their story, to defy death and make sure they don't die a second death, then you got to do things to effectuate that. Part of it is taking time out this Sunday. Join us to spend some time thinking about your dad, honoring him, sending love, prayers, connecting with him in a formal way. So many opportunities. Coming back to that cemetery that I walked through, I'm friendly with and working with an amazing cemetery here in town called Seven Stones. It's a cemetery that was started by a family, a friend of mine named Doug. He and his family, Becky, his sister, and his dad, they started this cemetery because they believed there was a better way in cemeteries. The one I walked through is hundreds of years old, and it's missing the opportunity of technology. So Seven Stones, every stone, every tombstone, every cemetery marker has a QR code built into it. This is not new technology. This stuff has been around for a couple decades now. How hard is it to put a QR code in a tombstone of our loved one? We can put them on a tree. I just told you about every single one in the cemetery has a QR code. Let's put them on the stones. Let's connect them to a database. Let's put in pictures of our loved ones and stories of our loved ones and the eulogies and the love poetry between grandma and grandpa. I did this. We did this. Shirat Hayam, Swampscott, Massachusetts. We did this 15 years ago. Every synagogue has yahrzeit plaques, memorial plaques on the walls. We had a logistical problem because we didn't have enough wall space. There were two merged synagogues. We merged them together, and we had some logistical challenges. One was we didn't have enough wall space for those memorial plaques, and that challenge was our opportunity. We ended up building this memorial alcove, and in it we had a very simple plasma screen TV where we input virtually the names of our loved ones. Now, I couldn't get the synagogue to take it any further. It needed seed capital investment. I understand synagogues aren't built for entrepreneurism. That's why ultimately I moved on from the synagogue world, as much as I love them. Not quite forward thinking, not Shirat Hayam is. Most houses of worship aren't. Cemeteries definitely aren't. The private sector now is offering all kinds of what I call legacy technology. Let's start integrating it into our houses of worship, into our cemeteries, into our lives. I want to take my kids back to Omaha, Nebraska to visit their Grandpa Shelley's stone to their grave, and I want them to read about him. I want to scan the QR code on the stone and get to know him and pull up pictures about him and music he loved. There's so many opportunities in this day and age, but we got to start thinking as guardians of the legacy. We got to start thinking in less fearful ways, right? We're so afraid of loss and dying and death, and as a result, it's stripped us of our power. We are powerless. We think small and limited ways when it comes to death, when it comes to loss. Let's take back that power, and it starts with becoming guardians of our loved one and our loved one's legacy. I don't want to forget, there's QR codes, just the tip of the iceberg. I'll put a link up to it, but go to the Zachor Foundation, Z-A-C-H-O-R, which means memory. It's a Holocaust foundation there to remember the stories of Holocaust survivors and their precious stories as they are leaving this world physically. We are guardians of their stories emotionally and spiritually, and we got to tell their stories. Well, the founder of it, Ben Lesser, invested a lot of money into virtual technology. And so go to Zachor Foundation and watch Ben Lesser's virtual story. You can interact with Ben. You click on his story and he's a hologram, and you can ask him questions. Mr. Lesser, what was it like in the Holocaust? And he'll tell you the story. It is an amazing technology. Maybe you saw this on 60 Minutes a couple months ago. It's still pretty much cost prohibitive, but it won't be forever, just like this iPhone that I'm holding in my hand. Technology comes down in price, and when it does, we have to be ready to start thinking forward, to reimagining the way we approach legacy. It's our opportunity, but obligation to become guardians of our loved one's legacy. Next time I'll talk about why it's important to become the type of person that guards a loved one's legacy. But for now, it's enough to really rethink our role in those who have come before us, our responsibility in making sure they don't die a second death. Everybody dies a physical death. We don't have to die the death of our story. David Eagleman says in some of 40 Tales, there are 3 deaths, not just 2 deaths. The first, when the body ceases to function, physical death. The second, when the body is consigned to the grave, when we bury the body. The third is that moment, sometime in the future, when your name is spoken for the last time. there will come a point in all of our lives when our name is spoken for the last time. We owe it to our dads to make sure it doesn't happen on our watch, not while we're here and alive. As long as I'm alive, my Father's name will be spoken again and again and again. I owe it to him, and I want to give that to him, just like my children, God willing, will give it to me and their mother and their children, and so on and so forth. That's what Father's Day is about. If your loved one, if your father is here, or fathers, some of us have many fathers, spend time with them, honor them, help them talk about their legacy while they're here, record their legacy while they're here. And if they're not here, then now you're the guardian of the legacy, and I'm sure you will continue to guard it for as long as you are alive. Join us Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Mountain Time. Nobody knows Mountain Time. It's the overlooked time zone, right? Everybody knows East Coast, West Coast, a little bit Central. Nobody knows Mountain Time. So it's 2 hours behind East Coast, 1 hour behind Midwest. It's right on time for Mountain Time, and it's an hour ahead of Pacific Time. 9:30 a.m. Sunday morning. Join us, the Legacy Alive experience. Ariel and I will take you through a mindfulness, meditation, memorial, celebration for you, for your dad, for all of your dads who have walked this earth, who are no longer physically here, but are still here emotionally and spiritually and in story and name, because you are the guardian of their story. Take care. Salam, shalom, namaste, peace.